Hey there, and welcome back to Common Knowledge. It is episode 77, double sevens. That's got to be lucky, right? So we got to find something pretty good here in this mess of commons and see if any of them are good for the Pauper format. We will start with Armored Transport, which is 3 mana for an artifact creature construct. It's a 2/1 creature, and you prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to this creature by creatures blocking it. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to this creature by creatures blocking. Okay, that makes more sense. I was thinking, like, wait a minute, this doesn't do any damage? Okay, it attacks freely, knowing that it can't be killed by combat damage. But it can still just be blocked. It can still be easily hit with any kind of other damage. It doesn't prevent the damage when it blocks. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it stays on the field longer, but it's not. I'm trying to think of where you would even use something like this, where the value would be, and I'm kind of coming up with very little. I guess it's cool that you can attack in. Like if you had, I can't think of anything with. Let's take a look. Does anything have raid in Pauper? Got a couple things, I guess. Attack the creature this turn. Deals. Yeah. Turn target creature to another's hand. I mean, that's kind of expensive too. A lot of the stuff's expensive, but there are a number of things with raid. Raid is just if you attacked that turn, you get some kind of extra or bonus or something unlocks to begin with. Let's sort this by mana value. Enters the battlefield if you attacked with a creature this turn. Target opponent discards a card. That's not as bad. Enters tapped. No, maybe it is kind of bad. Shipwreck Looter. Yeah, there's not a ton of great options here, but it is kind of cool that here is a card that basically says, yeah, you can raid any turn you want because you can just attack in with this guy freely, not have to worry about this thing dying to combat damage. I still don't think it's that great. I would rather just have, a haste creature or tokens that I could just keep making more of. He's pretty expensive for a 2/1. I don't really like it very much. I'll give this a for the interest, for the opportunities that this potentially makes, I'll give this a 2.3. I still don't think that means it's very good, but it is at least interesting. Blind Hunter. This is a card I like that is not very good because I played with it back in Guild Pact. Blind Hunter is 2 and Orzhov mana, which is a white and a black for a 2/2 flying bat, and it has Haunt. So when this creature dies, you exile it, haunting target creature. Could be yours, could be your opponent's. When this creature when this creature enters, or the creature it haunts dies, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Haunt was an interesting but kind of flawed mechanic from Guild Pact that was the Orzhov mechanic. And despite loving Orzhov is my favorite guild by far in Magic. Haunt wasn't very good. One, it's just kind of hard to show on the board. You exile this creature, but you put it under another creature to show that that's what it's haunting. It's a little bit complicated to just show on the board. And I think a creature that would exile itself don't love that. Maybe I want something from the graveyard. Although I guess this is kind of cool in like a Insidious Root style deck. Not that that's useful in Pauper for you, but that's kind of interesting. That's something that's self-exile, so it goes to the graveyard and then goes away. Okay. You can haunt your own creatures, so if you're in more of a sacrifice theme, you can sack your creatures to get those haunt triggers. I don't know if all haunt triggers are this way, but at least this one is, where it is an interest trigger. So this does have some bouncy, flickery kind of effect. That is a 4-point swing, right? You know, you gain 2, your opponent loses 2. That's not nothing. And then you are left with a 2/2 flyer. I think the price isn't terrible, but what you're left with is a 2/2 flyer, and that's generally not good enough. This is not a very good card. I would not I would not put this in your proper decks, but man, I remember having a lot of copies of this thing and liking it quite a bit, even though it was never very good. But this was, you know, back in the high school days where you couldn't just order whatever cards you wanted from TCG Player or Mana Pool or something like that, and you just had to use what you had, or maybe you got to go to one comic book shop or something and buy some cards there. But yeah, Blind Hunter, I'm gonna give. I think even if you just took all the haunt shit off it, and the haunt is really just a bonus, but if you took all that shit off it and just had this be a 2/2 flyer, then when it enters the battlefield, an opponent loses 2, you gain 2. For 4 mana, that's not the worst. And you technically get to do it again sometime. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I'll give this a I'll give this a 2.5. Next up is Cartouche of Solidarity. Okay, here's a pretty good card. Cartouche of Solidarity is a single white mana for an enchantment that is an aura cartouche. Enchants creature you control. When this aura enters, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. And enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has first strike. You will see this show up in the mono white heroic decks. This is pretty useful for that. You can also sometimes see this show up in Bogle's decks, because one thing that Bogle's decks are pretty susceptible to is sacrifice effects. So if your opponent makes you sacrifice something, and you've loaded up your one Bogle like it's a Voltron commander deck or something like that, you're in trouble. You have to sacrifice that creature. So for an enchantment to come into play and make a body, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So that gives you some sacrifice protection. The warrior also has vigilance, so it's not the worst thing to load up with some enchantments as well. It's not bad. This can show up in a couple of different lists, and it's not bad in any of those lists. It also makes a warrior token. The warrior can be useful. There are some creature types matter typal things that warriors would be good to have. And the +1/+1 with first strike is not the worst thing in the world either. This is a nice little package. I think this card is very playable. It's not going to be one of your best cards. You know, you have Ethereal Armor, which just does what this does, but better in almost every case. But the creature that this comes with is significant, really. So what do we give this thing? It's well above a 5. It's probably closer to something like 6.4. It's nice to get something that gets above a 5. 5 being like like the minimum Pauper playable card. I'd say I think this can get 6.4. I think is pretty good. You know what? I might even bump it up to 6.7. No, 6.6. Don't be crazy. Don't be crazy now. 6.6. I think that's pretty good. Good card. All the cartouches are pretty good. Oh boy. Back to my Mirrodin days. Silver Mirror. Love Silver Mirror. And I think this is the best art for it too. This Kev Walker art. They changed it. Yeah, they changed it in Scars. Not a fan. Not a fan of what it looks like in Scars. It's just not my speed. I think these ones by Kev, awesome. Just gorgeous. I love the mirror. Love the mirror quite a bit as somebody who started Magic around Mirrodin time, 8th edition Mirrodin time. These designs always appealed to me quite a bit. The mirror, this kind of cycle of mirror that make mana. You had one for each color. Silver's a not terrible one of these, although I think blue has gotten a number of mana dorks that are probably better than this. these days. You know, we've seen Oaken Siren before. There was like one in Ether Drift. Those are usually making mana that's a little bit more conditional, but they are making mana with better stats. You know, Oaken Siren's a 1/2 flying vigilance, and you can only use that blue mana for artifact spells or mana to use artifact abilities, something like that. But it has an extra point of toughness. It flies. It has vigilance. It does a lot more than the Silvermere does. But it's still Silvermere's not bad. None of these mirror are too bad at all. I think mirror are not really playable as a tribe so much in Pauper. I've thought about it. I've looked into it. There just aren't enough useful common mirror that really. There's some good ones. There's some good ones for sure. But when you're trying to make like a typal deck with them, I don't think you're really going to have a whole lot of success. But if you're just using this as a mana dork in Pauper, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to give this guy a 5. Right there. Pauper playable, but right on the edge. Right on the edge of playability. Love that art though. Ivy Elemental is X and a green for a 0/0 elemental. And this creature enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Interesting. You know, this was a rare in Odyssey, continued to be a rare in Plane Chase, all the way downshift to a common, and then I shifted back up to an uncommon. Interesting. I think this is kind of a cool effect. You know, I think we probably have cards that do this slightly better. Oh, well, we definitely have cards that do this better. You have Nyxborn Hydra, right? Nyxborn Hydra. Which is essentially the same thing, except it has the bestow. Like, yeah, this is... It does the same thing, except it's got a point of toughness already, so it's going to be bigger than what the elemental is, right? Yeah, it's going to be bigger than what the elemental is, right? To start with. But then you can also bestow it, and then it becomes an enchantment, or an aura. It's already an enchantment. So the only thing that this really has going for it that Nyxborn doesn't is that this is not an enchantment, which could be, I suppose, useful if you're going up against people with Thraben charms and things like that. But for the most part, I don't hate this. You know, if you're making like a big Tron deck, and this is just becomes this modular creature you can put on at any time. Not modular, a modal kind of creature that you can put on at any time. You can just put a single counter on it for 2 mana. You know, you're never going to get the perfect rate for this, but you're getting a decent thing. But then imagine you put 7 mana into this. You got your Tron mana and you got your 1 green mana, and you throw Tron into this, and now you got a 7/7. That's pretty cool. This is just useful at any point in the game, but it's also not all that useful at any point in the game because it's just vanilla. You know, they can block it for days. It has no evasion. It has no trample. It's interesting though. I don't hate it. I really don't hate it, but I also don't love it. And Nyxborn Hydra, really, in kind of 9 out of 10 cases, 9.5 out of 10 cases, you're going to want to play that over this, which I think means this ends up being more like a 3.7 when it probably could have been a lot higher before Nyxborn Hydra. What do we got next? What is our 6th card of the day going to be? Who knows? It is up to the computer to do its job. There we go. It's Last Caress for 2 and a black. It's a sorcery. It says target player loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life, and you draw a card. This has only been printed in Apocalypse. It's a dime. It's a dime for this card. And it's not amazing. A 2 life swing and a card draw. 3 mana, sorcery speed. Those are all things that are kind of holding this thing back. If it was 2 mana, if it was instant speed, you know, there's a number of things. If put you drew a card, but you also got a map token or something. Map tokens did not exist during Apocalypse, but the idea that it needs something more because the format has just gotten too good at this point, and this card can't keep up with that. I think you'll give this a 2. It probably doesn't even quite deserve a 2, but we'll give it a 2 anyway. We'll move on to our next card. Wrecking Crew is 4 and a red for a 4/5 human warrior with reach and trample. It's on New Capenna and also Foundation Jumpstart. Same art, I imagine. Yep, same art. This is fine. This is pretty good for a French vanilla creature. You get 2 keywords on it, reach and trample. They're not the best combination of keywords. It's because they don't work together. They work separately very nicely. Reach is something that you do on defense. Trample is something you do on offense. So I guess it's cool that it has the versatility for something like that. But you'd want it to have trample and death touch, or trample and menace, or trample and first strike. Like there's lots of things that it would be nice to have pair better with these keywords, or reach and death touch is a good one too. Reach and first strike is a pretty good one as well. But together, they're kind of it's kind of a non-bow, but at the same time, it gives this card a little bit more usefulness in different situations, and that's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, it's a 5 mana 4/5. Okay. Let's give it a 2.5 and move right along. It's not the worst card though. Simic Signet. I don't think we've done a Signet before, but we can do the Signets now. Originally from Simic was Dissension. Boom. Yeah, Dissension. Also from that Ravnica block with Guild Pact. That's actually pretty good art for the Signet. We've seen a number of arts. The original one, the bar of soap, is the one that a lot of people know the most, I imagine. Signets are fine. Signets are totally fine. You'll see them a lot more in Commander than you'll see them in Pauper, but I don't think they're awful in Pauper. If you have that two color combination in your deck, there are worse things. This could be in a Tron deck that's trying to make multiple colors, I guess. Prophetic Prism you'd probably just use more often, but I don't know. I haven't really seen Signets play a role in Pauper, and I don't know if they ever will. But they're still like solid cards. This is a solid ramp in pretty much any situation. I don't hate the Signets at all. I'll give them kind of similar to the Silver Mirror. Like they're just a 5. It's like this card is totally playable. You could put it in your deck and do good work with it, but you just kind of don't. You just kind of don't these days. It's interesting. If somebody had a Signet in their deck, in their Pauper deck, and played it against me, I would probably be a little surprised. I'd probably raise an eyebrow. And then they would just go on to ramp and do just fine. So I don't know. I think this is a totally fine card. And it's kind of weird that it doesn't get as much play. I mean, unlike Prophetic Prism, it doesn't have an enters the battlefield trigger. It doesn't draw you a card. Drawing the card is the enters the battlefield trigger, but drawing the card is useful. That's where you see like Chromatic Star and things like that will also draw cards. I get it on some level, but I also just think ramping and getting your colors is really nice. Really nice. All right, let's move on. So all Signets would end up getting, all Ravnica Guild Signets would end up getting a 5, by the way. So if we see any more of them, know that they're all 5s. Forgotten Sentinel is 4 mana for an artifact creature Golem. It's a 4/3, and this creature enters tapped. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. I'm the guy who loves golems. So for me to say a golem is bad is saying something. I'll give this a 1.3. Just not good. And our final card of the day is Nimble Blade Kenra. It's 1 in a red for a 1/3 Jackal Warrior, and it's got prowess. It's not terrible. It's really not. It's it's no oh god, what's the 1/2? The 1/2 haste prowess that's been banned out of Pauper. The very famous magic card. It was just in standard. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You know what it is. This isn't that far off from it, except it costs an extra mana. It doesn't have haste, and it's an extra point of toughness. Yeah, it sounds like a pretty bad deal, honestly. Yeah, prowess is always going to be kind of exciting to me, but you can't just put it on anything. And you kind of want it on your 1 mana guys and less on your 2 mana guys. It's not terrible though. It's I'll give this a 3. It's still solid. Let's do a bonus card. I'm sick that I can't remember that other creature's name. 1/2. It's a monk. Something monk. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but it doesn't matter for these purposes. Loam Larva is 1 in a green for a 1/3 insect. When this creature enters, you may search your library for a basic land, reveal it, shuffle, put that card on top. Ooh, so close. Obviously they weren't going to put Rampant Growth on a creature that costs the same amount as Rampant Growth. That would be silly. But if this put the land in your hand, I think you could still have a good conversation about this. Like having some blink effects or bounce effects, ways of getting those lands with color fixing if you're in a 5-color deck or a higher color deck. I think this could be pretty cool. But when it just goes on top, that's not quite good enough. You don't really want that. 1/3 is a pretty good stat line too, but putting the card on the top just slows you down way too much. Knowing that your next draw is going to be a land, even when you want it to be a land, knowing your next one is going to be a land instead of gas is a little disappointing. And unless you have some engine that you're able to draw the card right away, and even then you're spending more resources to draw the card when it should really just go in your hand. So with all that being said, man, I want to give this such a better score because I want it to be a better card. But it's not a better card. It's just Loam Larva. And we'll give it a 1.8. 1.8. We'll call it a day there. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll see you next time.